warrants, so I understand how they work. I understand how the process goes, and I've been on many, many teams with both state, local, and federal officers.
Yeah.
My thoughts are this, and it's kind of a three-prong answer. Number one, what precipitated and led to this escalation to obtain a search warrant? I've got a lot of questions about that, you know. Number two, what is exactly in the affidavit? Because an affidavit is supposed to have probable cause that a crime has been committed and name the crime, and that evidence of said crime is located in, location A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
And then again, so I don't really have a fault with the officials that actually served the warrant on the scene, because they look like they executed the warrant as per order by the judge, right? That's important. And the third thing is the attack point of this from the Trump side is going to be the validity or the probable cause affidavit. That's going to be the key hub attack point. Was it reasonable? Because that goes right to the Fourth Amendment. As we know, we are protected from unreasonable searches. But unfortunately, in this place, there's more questions than answers, James, about the idea of reasonable. And this is going to be conjecture. It's going to be speculation probably for months at this point. And the last thing I'll say is kind of a overriding point.
Yeah.
If I'm President Trump at this point, and they went to all that escalation to obtain a court-ordered entry into my home, I'm going to say, if you got probable cause for a crime and you believe I did it, go ahead and charge me and let me get on with the fight. Because this thing's dragging on. Because if it drags on anymore, it's going to impair significantly the November elections, which I believe is the intent. And I think the long-term goal, my speculation again, is to perhaps make it so where President Trump cannot hold office because he's been committed of a crime or whatever.
Yeah. We have got a great guest with us today. Dr. Mark Sherwood is with us. He was born in Tulsa. He has done a little bit of everything. He has been a regional bodybuilding champion. He was an ex-professional baseball player. He is a 24-year retired veteran of the Tulsa Police Department, where he logged a decade of courageous service on the SWAT team. He's had political aspirations. You're like the most interesting man in the Midwest, Mark.
Yeah, no, I figured I should get one of those beers and say the most interesting man still alive or something like that. I don't know, but man, it's been a good journey, and God's been good, and I give him all the praise and the glory. But we've just tried to continue to step up to communicate truth and hope to people, as we still are.
Now, one of the things that our good friend Don Mazzella has said on several occasions is Trump needs to just go home and, leave all this politics stuff behind and be like maybe somebody behind the scenes or something like that. What do you say to that, Doctor?
Well, having been in the political game,
yes,
I can tell you that this temptation that I'm getting ready to lay out is here for everyone. So my wife and I talked about this. It's a temptation for money, fame, influence, and power. We all can fall prey to that temptation. When you bite that apple and you get some of that, if you're not guarded in that, it can become consuming of a human being, and it becomes part of you, and you can't let it go, no matter how much it pains you, because as we say in the Hollywood business, any publicity, good or bad, is good publicity. So it's the idea of staying in the news. Now, having said that, I admire Donald Trump for stepping into the fray, into this mess, because it is worse than I ever imagined, and I thought nothing, being a former law enforcement officer, could surprise me. But I got surprised. It is worse, more corrupt, more nasty, more vile, more evil than anything I've ever been involved in. Having said that, I still admire someone that goes out there and continues to fight. But it would be easier for him just to go on home and own his golf courses, run his businesses, and move on with his life than continue to fight this crazy thing.
The trouble is, if he went home, it'd be very hard on him. But I have
I
to
agree.
jump in here. The New York Post today, which you know is a very pro-Trump, the headline is that Trump is toast, and they have a four-page spread showing why. I didn't bring it in here, Jiggy, but the plain and simple truth is that these people are not playing American politics. They're playing something else, and and it's reached a point where if you read the paper or you read the New York Times, which I unfortunately have to do, is it's a world today that's totally. You said it. You said it the best. You never thought things were bad, but they've gotten worse.
Yeah.
And you really sit there and say to yourself, "What the heck is going on?" I mean, this vendetta against Trump has reached a point. I mean, I don't believe there's a president that's left office that hasn't had the same sort
Yes.
of papers on their desk. I talked to somebody from the Reagan Library about this 2 weeks ago, and they said the same thing. If they had, it simply takes time to go through all of this material, and they're still turning up material that should not have been taken. How long has President Reagan been out? Well, what is it, 80, 88? So we're talking, almost 30. They're finding stuff. You can go to any. How do historians find these new things for happening for President Grant? I mean, but to raid a home, I don't care what they found. It's simply not worth it. But they want to get Trump and the Republican Party out of office. And unfortunately, I believe they're succeeding. If you look at the numbers, I mean, how does Palin lose in Alaska?
I know.
I mean, you're sitting there, you're sitting there saying, what's going on? You have the upstate New York congressional race. There's something going on in this country. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Advise and Consent. There's a wonderful scene in there where Charles Lawton playing the Southern Senators. I don't like the voices going on in the land. Well, right now, these voices are winning. And I'll stop my Talmudic and ask you simply a question. How do we stop it?
Well, I think I'll answer that in two parts. The first part, I echo your concern, Don, because right now we have what's called a uniparty system. There's not really a Republican Democrat party that's pulling the string. It's a uniparty. And people like Donald Trump, even myself, you ruffle their feathers and you cramp their style, and they do not want you around because you ask too many questions, you see too much, and they're absolutely afraid of what you might find. Now, how do we stop it? This is very key, and this is my a very good point. I think we stop it by doing a couple things. Number one, realizing that the country or the constitutional republic that we have is not going to be saved at the federal level. It's at the state and local level. That's super important because the 10th Amendment indicates clearly by intent that the states and the people should be the parent in this relationship with the federal government. In other words, the federal government should be the child, the states and the people should be the parent. We have got to take that back from a state and local level. Now, how do we do that with these governors that have no spine and are already bought and paid for? We, as a grassroots people, have to become so unified with educating grassroots, conservative, God-fearing, Constitution-loving patriots. And I believe there's many. We have to educate them on what that means. We have to galvanize that force from the people. We have to bring them to the ballot box, because even in most states, no more than half of the registered Republican voters vote in primaries. That is a major problem. Further, there's many people that are checked out of politics because they don't think they can make a difference. So there's Democrats that are really Republicans that don't even know it. There's independents that don't know what they're doing anyway. But if you can educate people on the values of which our country stands, I believe, and I still have a glimmer of hope, that we can chip away at this on a local level and eventually create enough noise to where we, the people, can stand again. And I'll finish my answer with this. I think we're seeing that potentially with this goofball Biden's comment that says, and I did that word intentionally, he is a goofball, right? And he said that if you want to challenge the government, you're going to need an F-15. Okay, to me, that was not a threat. To me, that communicated fear. He is afraid of the people, and he wants us to back down. So I really believe there's a little glimmer of hope for us, but we have got to act fast, swift, confident, and sure, and not back down when the difficulties come.
Yeah, President Trump, President Nick, I'm sorry, it's very difficult. The president has gone out in Pennsylvania and said that the Republicans are responsible. The people for the death of 2 Capitol policemen. It just came across. And by the way, the New York Times has moved across the fact that the judge she's delaying her decision on whether the special master, but permitting the FBI to continue looking at the files. You know, I mean, you're sitting there saying, you either make a decision or you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Sherwood, you have you're such a great speaker. I
wish I had his voice.
You're fantastic. Well, one of the things that our other good friend who's joining us today, IQ Rizzoli, says is, it's completely over. We just need to have a revolution and start over. IQ, what do you think of what Mark is saying here?
Well, what Mark is saying is absolutely correct, but he is very slow. With all due respect, I go for the jugular. I always go for the jugular. I don't beat around the bush. James knows me. I don't twist my words. I call a spade a spade. If he doesn't like it, he can commit suicide. You don't have a justice system. You don't have rights of humanity in America today. You haven't had it since Obama, by the way. It all started with Obama. I've always said it, and I will continue to say it until the day I die. The decline of America started with Obama. What you have now is the third term of Obama, but on steroids. So
yeah, I would agree with that in a sense, because I remember being in law enforcement back in those days when Obama got in office. He actually began to communicate division, promote rebellion against authority. He communicated and laid that narrative out there, and we as Americans bought into that. Okay. And he began to communicate a narrative of an I deserve society, meaning you need to supply my needs, federal government. You need to stand up for me. And I agree with you, IQ. That was my memory of a rapid degradation of the idea of our constitutional republic and our freedoms. And we began to see the family begin to deteriorate, manhood began to deteriorate. And you're on it right there. That was a downfall that, frankly, has led us to where we are right now on the brink of losing it all.
Mark, it's ironic. I'm a foreigner. I live in Europe. I know more about the Constitution than 99% of Americans, including Congress people. But it's like shouting in the tornado. Literally. That's why I'm saying unless there are 50 million Americans with 250 million guns. All you need is one American to take care of Mr. Biden. They call that incitement. I don't give a damn. The F-15 was incitement, by the way. You are absolutely right. It was a threat. Not only because he was scared, but he was threatening American people. You have a gun, I have the Air Force. Well, I have a gun, I don't need the Air Force.
Yeah, you want to hear something kind of crazy? When I was traveling around the state of Oklahoma in my campaign, and I think IQ, Don, James, you'll find this fascinating but not surprising. I had in my hand an Oklahoma GOP platform stance because I read it. Actually, it was 34 pages. I read it. In the other hand, I carried a Constitution. And my whole mission was to communicate the truths from each document to everybody I talked to. I may have found one, maybe two candidates or people in current office positions that knew anything about either document and had even read either one of them. It was shocking to me that they didn't even know what they stood for. So again, you nailed it right there. Most people don't have any idea of what those documents mean or say.
And yet the Constitution of the United States of America is second only to the Ten Commandments.
Yep, you're right.
I'm not a religious person, but I'm telling you, it is only second to the Ten Commandments. Why do I say the Ten Commandments? Because it's 10 simple commandments. It's not a complicated issue. It tells you 5 of them what you do are to God, and 5 of them, the other 5, what you do between man and man. Simple, deadly, precise. I don't need to go to a bloody lawyer who will give me 200 pages of nothing. Honestly, I hate lawyers. You have no idea how much I mean, I don't usually hate anybody. But lawyers,
Shakespeare say, let's kill all the lawyers.
Don, they destroyed the American Constitution. Your so-called legal system, you don't have a legal system. You don't have a system. You don't have nothing. And I'm an outsider looking in. And James agrees with me in the end. Even Don agrees with me in the end. And I hope Mark agrees with me.
So Mark, tell us a little bit about more of some of your experiences when you were running for office. Because I'll tell you, I bet you got some stories.
I do. I told this, and to IQ's point, I went around the state and I communicated the order of authority like this. This is how it should be: God, man, society, government, in that order. God, man, society, government. And I was told by many, many people, don't do that because that's not a winning formula. And I'm like, I don't care. That's the right formula. Well, as I traveled around the state, I got ridiculed so many times.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
For talking about God, man, society, and government. I started every talk I gave with this idea, and it was just me. I would talk about my faith in God, and I would talk about my honor of my wife, and then I would get on to business, right? I always did every time, over 250 times. The negative side of that, all the politicians ran like a bunch of scared chickens because they don't have backbones at all. They will not stand up for anything. They're just wishy-washy. They have no courage at all. On the good side, I saw many, many patriots rally around that call. We were told we couldn't. We were told there's no way. And yet we ended up getting 50,000 votes. And that was because it was the right thing to do. So that's what I learned. There are people out there and in our country that still believe it. There's people around the world that still believe it. But you got to go out there to them. I was also told, don't you dare go to rural America because there's not enough votes in rural America to win an election. And technically,
Oh, really?
they're right, because the big cities are the strategic points of the Democratic leftists. They want to get in there and infiltrate those big cities where they can
Yes.
affect maybe a half a dozen counties in all the states, and you could literally win multiple counties, the majority of the counties, but you could lose an election. And that's their blueprint, and that's their strategy.
Oh,
also
I
learned
can
this.
back you up on that, Mark.
Yeah.
Our last governor here in the state of Kansas, Chris Kobach, who was running on the Republican side, he crisscrossed this entire state. He was at every barbecue, every parade. He went to towns where there was like 5 people living. He went all over the place. And this unknown woman who she registered on the final day that you could register.
Yep.
At the final hour that you could register. She didn't have any social media. She didn't have a website. She didn't have anything. And she campaigned in 3 areas and won the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and what they'll do is, and both the Democrats and Republicans do this, if you come in and you're building momentum like that, the same thing happened to me. They'll go out there and they'll even throw a dummy candidate in your own race that's funded by the Democrats that does nothing. They'll register the last day just to create a distraction, and then they'll buy a TV ad that covers about a week before the election, and they'll bombard the TV. You've got no time to adjust, and there's still people out there that get their information from the TV.
Yep.
So they can actually lie on you, cost you an election, and they don't have to pay for the ads, which is a huge problem. When
Yes.
you've got politicians out here that are being funded from, dark packs, black money, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
and there's no accounting of that, it creates an incredible, uneven, inequitable playing field. And it leaves only room for the elitists that get in there to hold office. And that's a problem, because the elitists right now are trying to take over the world. They really are. And that's not our country. We're about people, man. The people are first. and that's what just aggravates the nonsense out of me, that we have fell for those traps, and there's no rules around it. You can't.
Well,
what
that
I just
too.
said, you can't prevent that.
That too.
The final
And-
thing I learned is
ahead.
that, like, for example, Don could be running for office, right? You, James, could donate money to a 501c3. I mean, you could donate as much as you want over there, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That 501c3 then can give money to another organization that gives money to another organization that gives money back into Don's campaign.
Yeah.
Don doesn't have
That
to
is
track that,
amazing.
because that money can buy him ads, but you gave it and got a tax write-off for it. And that's the way it works. And so that's why millions and millions of dollars are funding these campaigns from outside of the states, even like outside of Kansas, outside of Oklahoma. And they're controlled by organizations outside of the affected area, because they don't want a state, they don't want a local area to have any power again. And so it's all about that big manipulation. And so, that's just a few of the things I learned.
It
Well,
is just
unfortunately,
amazing.
you're making me even more unhappy. But I was reading the New York Post, which is a pretty good paper now, but even the New York Post today was saying Trump is toast, and then we're really at a bad place. And the unfortunate part is we're talking to each other rather than we're talking to people who can make a difference. The people, it's unfortunate. Well, the 4 of us all agree, but okay. But and we may have an audience that'll tune in because they agree with us, but we have no audience that'll tune in to learn a different story. I mean, that to me is the saddest part of all of this.
Yeah.
And you see that CNN, the president, the new president said, let's be neutral, and then everybody's jumped on him. and said how terrible it is, that he should actually want to do something neutral. I don't know if you've been watching this media storm that's coming up. And what he's saying is, let's be neutral. And they're saying you can't be neutral. But and if you are, you're destroying democracy. and people all accepted it. Think about this. He wants to put news in front of people that's neutral, and people are saying that will destroy democracy.
Well, two things they're using. The word democracy doesn't exist in America. You are a republic.
How about that?
You are a constitutional republic. You're not a bloody democracy. That's item one. Item two confirms exactly what I said a few minutes ago. You have 50 million Americans with 250 million guns. Go out and overthrow them. If there is a bloodbath, let's have a bloodbath. You know what? If you want me to be there in America to do so, I swear to you, I will fly and do so. I will join you. If you join me with guns, I will join you with a submachine gun.
This is where I think we're going with this eventually.
Eventually, it's too long.
Eventually, it's too long.
November. You have to do it in the next 2 months.
Well, it's 2 months. He's right.
I'm telling you now, they are going to steal the election again, right from under your nose.
Well, one of the things, Mark, that you brought up about the, running the candidates and things. I noticed this the last time during the Trump-Biden election and a little bit before, was you would see progressive candidates that would run, and the Democrats and the Republicans would get together, and they would run somebody to get rid of them. And now you're starting to see it happen the other way, where conservative candidates are running and the Democrats and the Republicans get together and run ads and run people and try to run those people out of there because they're terribly afraid, because real conservatives and real progressives, they kind of want the same thing. And the parties, the Democrats and Republicans, are like, you've got to just stay out of our sandbox. We don't want you here. Get out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, James. That's exactly what I experienced. I was even as much as told that. I was told that, Mark, we agree with you and everything, but they use the term, you're too scorched earth. I'm like, what does scorched earth mean? And they said, you are too definitive in your answers. You're too definitive in your actions. And then I would respond, well, the 56 people that signed the Declaration of Independence were pretty definitive. I think definitive is what it took to, overthrow the British monarchy, right? Definitive is what it took to put your name on that line and say, I'm willing to die because I believe in the future. I'm willing to die because I want to worship the way I want to worship, and I want you out of my damn business. Yes. And that's pretty definitive. Right? And so I still believe that's the right way to be. And I think eventually there's enough patriots around here that are not going to put up with it. And I think we're going to have an incredibly divided country at some point. I think there'll be a section of the country that will be generally pretty conservative. And I think there'll be a section of the country that won't. And I think the days of the United States, or these United States that was intended to be, I think those days are over. I really do. I don't see it coming back, because how are you going to unite 50 states that have so polar opposite views and don't even love people? I don't see that happening.
Last time we did that, it was a civil war.
That's right. Exactly.
No. Yeah. But Biden. But if you read Biden's speech, he's saying, in effect, we're going to have a civil war.
Yep.
He is inciting a civil war. He's not saying it. Every action taken by Democrats is incitement for civil war.
I love it. They're inciting the war and saying that the other side's doing it.
That's right.
I'm saying it because it is absolutely true. The 6th of January was not an incitement bullshit. They had no guns. They had no machetes.
That's why we have a dump button.
They were shouting.
But if you take a look at, I got an advanced copy of Biden's speech.
You
if you read his speech, you'd say that
uprising with force. There was no uprising.
IQ is pumped up today. Good
I
Lord.
know, man. He's fired up.
Tell us how you really feel.
That's right. That's
Don't
right.
go back.
Well, as we wrap up here today, let's start with IQ Al Rizzoli. IQ, how do we get your books and everything, my friend?
Very simple. Google my name, Al Rassooli, ALRASSOOLI, and you have the time of your life.
Dawn, bring us up to speed on your books and everything.
DonMazzella.com, the National Robotics Education Foundation, the REF.org, and 2 SB Digest. And this weekend I finished a book, so it'll be out in February. The first of the trilogy.
Congratulations.
So, Mark, what's next for you now that you've run for office and all these things?
We have our 5th book that probably be coming out after the first of the year at some point. We're on our 5th movie that we'll be filming coming up in October. And we're still out here helping people, and we're still out here communicating. To your point, Don, we're taking every platform we can and continuing to communicate the message and share that truth out there. People can find us at Sherwood.tv super easy. And Don, a mighty congratulations to you on finishing a book. I know that's a major accomplishment. And IQ, I appreciate you being fired up, man. That's why I like you so much.
We need more people like IQ.
That's right.
Instead of the left-hand side.
Well, Mark, thanks for doing this, my friend. I will be in touch. And Dawn and IQ, I'll talk to you next Thursday. Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a great weekend. Take care.
Appreciate it. There they go. The fantastic Mark Sherwood, Dr. Mark Sherwood, and IQ Al Rizzoli. And, of course, you can get a hold of us online at JIGGYJHUAR.com. So that wraps it up for this edition. We will see you next time.